Our next speaker, rather our last
Ma'am,
speaker,
Dr. Kelkar is not there.
yeah, is Dr. Praveen Subudhi, young consultant from Ruby Eye Hospital, Behrampur, Odisha. With his teaching pearl, he has always had some very interesting tip to tell us. So let's hear from him. On to you, Dr. Praveen.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction. Am I audible, madam?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, madam, for this opportunity, and thank you, ARC, for making me a better surgeon after 3 hours of this pearls. So this case is not a tough case, but it's a case to ponder. So I'll be sharing this case. Is my video visible? Attract. Phakic play a very important roles in correcting high amount of refractive errors which cannot be rectified with cornea-based procedures. In cases with biomechanically weak corneas, phakic are a blessing in disguise, correcting all amounts of refractive error. Various variants of phakic are available in international market, manufactured by Indian companies and as well as global companies, which has a very high efficacy rate and gives a very good post-operative vision. Basically, there are two variants of phakic one with a central hole and one without a central hole. The one without a central hole has a risk of developing post-operative intraocular pressure rise because of angle closure attack. Hence, laser peripheral iridotomy is very helpful in preventing any form of post-operative intraocular pressure spikes. However, this laser iridotomy has a risk of developing pain in the eyes, redness in the eyes, bleeding in the eyes, as well as sometimes accidental damage to the antral lens capsule, causing permanent loss of vision due to cataract. Here we present a case of posterior chamber phakic intraocular lens with peripheral holes and a laser peripheral iridotomy, which accidentally damaged the antral lens capsule, eventually causing a cataract. The patient was scheduled for explantation of the phakic IOL followed by phacoemulsification. We need to create a little bit larger incision, is more than 2.8 to 3 millimeters, for the smooth removal of the phakic intraocular lens. As these Indian-made phakic intraocular lenses are a little bit bulkier, it will be very difficult to remove of these lenses through 2.8. So it's better to create a 3 millimeter incision for the smooth removal of the lens. If you try to manipulate more while removing these phakic intraocular lens, you may accidentally damage the corneal endothelium that may eventually lead to corneal decompensation. Hence, we need to be very smooth, very gentle, and it should come in single shot, and we should not do multiple attempts. You can see here this lens was removed through a 3 millimeter incision in a single shot. Then I had to suture this incision and go to the temporal side to perform my phacoemulsification. Next, phacoemulsification is performed with a 2.8 millimeter temporal corneal incision. While performing capsulorhexis, you need to be careful to avoid the area of antral lens capsular damage. The rhexis needs to be away from that area so that you can get a continuous curvilinear capsular rhexis. As the lens was very soft, a gentle hydrodissection and free rotation of the nucleus was performed, and instead of using a phaco probe, with the help of irrigation aspiration probe, the whole nucleus and the cortex was removed easily. You can see here the whole nucleus and the cortex is coming out with the irrigation aspiration probe instead of the phaco probe. Removal of the residual cortex was ensured, and little bit of antral lens capsular polishing was done to prevent post-operative posterior capsular opacification. Intraocular lens was implanted in the capsular bag and followed by removal of the viscoelastic and formation of the chamber with the help of balanced salt solution.
Nice presentation, Dr. Praveen. So on to the expert panel. Any questions you all have to ask?
Before starting the discussion, the biometry which I used is the IOLMaster 700 and Barrett's Universal 2 total keratometry. The power which came was 9 diopters, but in order to give little bit of myopic for the patient to have a little bit of better near vision, I thought of giving a minus 0.75 targeted refraction. So I used a 10 diopter IOL instead of a 9 diopter IOL.
Do you have to do any correction for the presence of ICL there? For the Indian ICL versus the imported ones? Is there any, because it is a bulkier, is there any difference?
No, sir. While implanting, are you talking about while implantation, sir?
No. I'm talking biometric calculation.
No, sir. Nothing. It's the same. Whatever the targeted refraction, I thought it came, and the patient was happy in the post-operative period. The patient had a very good vision, almost like 90% distance, and she had a good vision for the near also. So whatever target I wanted, it came.
As far as the biometry is concerned, I think, the ICLs are about 50 microns, while the other lenses are about 100 microns in the center. And when you're using a laser interferometry, it hardly matters if the laser passes through that amount of thickness, and there's really no adjustment that you have to do, even if you're doing an immersion A scan. And beautiful presentation, Praveen. I mean, brought about a nice concept and nice discussion. I think, why blame the laser iridotomy for this? Not only for these phakic intraocular lenses, but even otherwise, laser iridotomy is done day in and day out, and they very rarely cause a cataract like this. Yes. Of course, the vaulting of the lens is an important factor, and the fact that this particular lens did not have a central hole also has a greater propensity for an anti-subcapsular cataract. But during surgery, the reason for cataract being caused in phakic intraocular lenses is because of the viscoelastic removal. That's the step which is supposed to cause most often. So where you had the opacity was almost at the location where the side ports are made. So I believe that could have been one of the causes rather than the laser iridotomy creating it. And the second factor is that why is it that you made a 3 millimeter incision? You could have done your phaco through that itself. Why was it?
There will be a lot of leakage. There will be a lot of leak during the performance of the phacoemulsification. It will be shallowing.
What I do in these cases, I do routinely a 2.2 to 2.4 millimeter incision. But in these cases, I make a 2.8 millimeter incision and use a purple sleeve right through. Basically, I make sure that the phaco tip that I use is also requires a 2.8 millimeter incision. And that ensures that the whole surgery is much more controlled and I can complete it through the same incision. The other factor, as far as the explantation of the lens is concerned, instead of bringing the entire lens into the anterior chamber, as Ashwin showed in his presentation, if you just prolapse out one of the haptics into the anterior chamber, nicely filled up with viscoelastic, and you can go in either with a 10-0 forceps or with a front-loading forceps that we use for loading the lens. If you can just grasp it and then the lens just folds upon itself and comes out. So that I think is the least traumatic way of explanting these lenses, but otherwise very well managed.
Regarding, sir, the Indian phakic IOLs and the Western phakic IOLs like the ICL, the thickness, as you said, around 50 microns, and the Indian lenses are thicker. Is it easy to remove while it is behind the iris, or we have to remove both the haptics above that? Because while pulling it, you may accidentally damage the iris and it may cause a bleeding. That was my concern at that point of time.
This the ICLs are made up of Collamer, and the Indian lenses are made up of the same hydrophilic material. But the thickness of this material is much, these lenses is very, very much smaller compared to the intraocular lenses that we implant. And I have explanted both ICLs as well as Indian lenses, and these both of them come out quite comfortably through a 2.4 or a 2.8 millimeter incision. You really don't need a larger incision. Routinely, not that I do it very often, but whenever I have to explant it, then I just prolapse out one haptic and hold it and bring it out and do my phaco also through the same incision.
Dr. Chitra, I would chip in by saying that, if I'm allowed to, that I agree with all the pearls given by Ramamurthy sir, and I would do exactly the same thing. The only thing I would point out here is that about say 10-15 years back, I was there to do live surgery for ICL at some point, and that time we didn't have the Centraflow, and the patient had already had a YAG PI done about a week before the surgery, and when I saw the patient on the microscope, I could see a focal cataract right where the iridotomy was. Somebody had been overzealous with shooting, and I used to think PIs don't cause YAG laser iridotomies don't cause cataracts, and I could see the lenticular opacification beginning to start, and I mean, I was already into the surgery and I had no choice but to proceed. But I told the inviting surgeon that this patient is going to get a cataract, and 3 months later that patient needed a cataract surgery. Patient went on to develop the cataract. So I mean, that was the only time I've actually seen opacification right behind the big laser iridotomy. And second thing that Dr. Ramamurthy sir said about viscoelastic removal being the main step at which you may end up causing a cataract is that last year or two I've been totally using hydroimplantation of ICL, and it's really worked wonders because no IOP spikes, no kind of reaction next day, except that you should have done a couple of 100 ICLs and then you should switch to hydroimplantation, not as the first. It is more challenging, and there is also scope for more error. So definitely you need much more control, but that helps a lot, and it's helped me a lot.
Since we have the time, I mean, hydroimplantation is a great technique, Gaurav, and of course, in the hands of experienced surgeons like you, it will help. But in those who are a little more inexperienced, maybe using Healon or a cohesive viscoelastic will help, because
right. Absolutely,
it's a dispersive viscoelastic. You have to go chasing after that and remove every strand to prevent any postoperative pressure spike, and that's when you could possibly touch the capsule. But if you have used a cohesive viscoelastic, the whole thing goes out as a bolus.
Absolutely.
Removal is very easy.
I agree.
What about the in cohesive viscoelastic, the 1.4%, 1.8%? What is the preference for you in these cases? It's more the one thickness and whether it comes out in a single bolus?
I frankly use whatever is given to me, but I think it's 1.4%.
So I think
also, Dr. Chitra, there was one interesting quick one which I wanted to show you. We had 2-3 presentations on Q%. I just wanted to show one small 3-second clip to, just I pulled it out specially for this one, and just if I can show you, just watch. I mean, considering that we prepare so hard for these cases, just watch. I'm going through a paracentesis and I'm hoping to decompress the lens. And so, sometimes you don't get a time to even, I just touched the lens and it kind of went away. So, I think femto is a great way to do these intumescents. I spoke at an oration in Hyderabad about 3-4 years back, and I was proudly claiming the same as somebody today claimed that ever since I started doing this, I've never had a Argentinian flag sign for last 3-4 years because I was talking about my techniques. And well enough, I came back, and 1 week later I had this patient which I just showed, and I went in with all the precautions, and I just went in with good viscoelastic in the chamber. I went in from a fresh paracentesis with a 26 gauge, thinking I'll decompress it. Moment I touched the lens, I didn't have time to even kind of start doing the decompression bit. So when it has to happen, it'll happen.
It'll happen. As simple as that.
Is there any other questions my other speakers have to ask, or shall I go on to my concluding remarks? I think everybody is tired. It's been
concluding remarks now.
Yes, it goes without saying that it has been a top-class webinar with our speakers showcasing such wonderful cases in great grandeur. And of course, our expert panel have really done justice to the moment, and I'm sure each of us have learned from this particular webinar even more so. Our sincere thanks on behalf of ARC to all of you. Our thanks are also due to our able admin team led by Mr. Kripal, Mr. Sunil, who has been the webinar admin, and I'm sure all of you know how efficient he is. And we should not forget Sai and Manjula from Numerotech, who have always been our backbone for ARC in our activities. Our thanks are due to Entod for being our constant support and sponsors. And I'm sure all of us saw this video which Mr. Nikhil showed. It was so apt for the Glaucoma week, which is ahead of us. And finally, and most importantly, our thanks to all our attendees who actually give us the energy to keep coming back with different webinars, and hope to keep challenging you, even though we eat away your Sunday afternoon nap. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, all of you. I'm sure you all enjoyed it.
We all enjoyed it. Thank you.